At 31, Obiora Madu had built an empire from nothing. Son of a construction worker and a seamstress, he had turned a small loan into a real estate corporation that now owned 47 buildings across West Africa. His name commanded respect. His silence commanded fear. And his family commanded him, with an iron grip he was only now beginning to resist. And in a narrow alley behind the Oshodi market, where the noise of the city was so loud it swallowed everything, a deaf girl named Halima knelt beside a clay oven and pulled out bread with her bare hands. She couldn't hear the city. She couldn't hear the vendors shouting, or the cars honking, or the children laughing. But she could feel the heat of the dough, the rhythm of the fire, and the vibration of footsteps on the ground. And that was enough. Their paths should never have crossed. But fate doesn't follow maps. And on the night Obiora Madu lost everything he thought he needed, he stumbled into the only place where someone offered him everything he actually did. The dining room was enormous. Crystal chandelier, imported wine, polished silverware reflecting candlelight across the long mahogany table. 6 people sat around it: Obiora, his parents, his younger sister, and a couple he had never met before. The woman across from him smiled too much. Her father talked too loudly. And between them sat a contract disguised as a conversation. "Obiora," his mother said smoothly, "Chidinma's father owns the largest cement supply chain in the southeast. A union between your families would be strategic." Chidinma looked at him with rehearsed warmth. Her makeup was flawless, her dress was designer, her interest was calculated. "I hear you enjoy architecture," she said, leaning forward slightly. Obiora set down his fork. "I enjoy building things." "That's the same thing." "No," he said quietly. "It's not." Silence. Uncomfortable. His mother's eyes sharpened. Later, after the guests had left, his father cornered him in the study. "You embarrassed us." Obiora didn't look up from the window. "I was honest." "Honesty is a luxury you can't afford." His father's voice was low, controlled. "This marriage secures the cement contracts. Without them, the Abuja project collapses." "Then let it collapse." His father stepped closer. "You will marry that girl, Obiora, or I will remove you from this company myself." The words landed, cold, final. Obiora turned slowly. "You'd choose a contract over your son?" His father didn't blink. "I'd choose the family's future over your feelings." Silence. The kind that breaks things. That night, Obiora left. No driver, no security, no phone call. He walked out of the family estate in jeans and a plain shirt, took a taxi to the mainland, and disappeared into the kind of Lagos that billionaires only saw through tinted windows. The alley behind the Oshodi market smelled of charcoal, yeast, and overripe fruit. It was narrow, loud, chaotic, the kind of space that could swallow a person whole. Obiora walked through it without direction, without purpose, without anyone recognizing him for the first time in years. It was past midnight when the smell hit him. Bread. Fresh, warm, impossibly inviting. It cut through the stale air like a voice calling his name. He followed it. At the end of the alley, a small clay oven glowed orange in the darkness. Beside it, a young woman knelt on a mat, her hands moving steadily, shaping dough with a precision that seemed almost musical. Her clothes were worn, her headscarf was faded, her feet were bare on the concrete. But her hands moved like they were creating something sacred. She didn't look up when he approached. She didn't react when he stood 3 feet away. She didn't flinch when his shadow fell across her workspace. Because she couldn't hear him. Obiora watched for a moment. Then he spoke. "Excuse me." Nothing. She continued shaping. He tried again, louder. "Hello?" Still nothing. Then he noticed the way she tracked movement through vibration, not sound. The way her eyes swept the ground before they swept his face. The small hearing aid in her left ear, cracked, dead, useless. She was deaf. She finally noticed his shadow and looked up. Her eyes were dark, alert, and completely unimpressed. She studied him for 2 seconds, then pointed to a small wooden board where prices were written in chalk. Bread, 200 naira. Extra large, 350 naira. Obiora reached into his pocket. Empty. His wallet was in his other jacket, the one hanging in a closet in a mansion he had just walked away from. He looked at her, then at the bread, then back at her. She watched his hands, his expression. She read the situation the way deaf people read everything, through observation, not explanation. Then she did something he didn't expect. She reached into the oven, pulled out a fresh loaf, tore it in half, and held one piece out to him. He shook his head, pointed to his empty pocket. She pushed the bread closer. Her face was calm, insistent, not pitying, practical. "You're hungry. I have bread. Take it." He took it. The warmth spread through his fingers, up his arms, into his chest. He bit into it and almost closed his eyes. It was the best bread he had ever tasted. Not because of the ingredients, because of everything it represented. He looked at her. She had already turned back to her oven, shaping the next loaf. No expectation, no waiting for gratitude, just work. Obiora sat down on the curb. He ate the bread slowly. And for the first time in months, the noise in his head went quiet. He came back the next night. This time he brought money, small bills he had gotten by selling his watch to a street vendor for a fraction of its value. He placed the money on her wooden board and pointed to a loaf. Halima looked at the bills, then at him. She recognized him, the man from last night. The hungry one with expensive shoes and empty pockets. She took the money, counted it, and handed some back. He shook his head, pushed it toward her. She pushed it back. Her expression was firm. She pointed at the chalkboard. 200 naira. The bread cost 200 naira. He had given 500 naira. He tried again, gesturing for her to keep it. She folded her arms, shook her head once. Absolute. She pointed at the chalkboard again, then at the coins, then at him. The message was clear. I charge what I charge, nothing more. He took the change. Something in his chest shifted, a door opening to a room he had forgotten existed. The third night, he brought a small notebook and a pen. He sat on the curb and wrote in careful, large letters, My name is Obiora. What is yours? She took the notebook, read it, then wrote beneath his words in handwriting that was surprisingly beautiful, curved and confident. Halima. He wrote, Your bread is the best I've ever had. She read it. A small smile crossed her lips, the first he had seen. She wrote, You say that because you were hungry. Hunger makes everything taste better. He wrote, I wasn't hungry last night. I still came back. She paused, read the words twice, then looked at him. Her eyes held something new, not suspicion exactly, but awareness. The awareness of someone who had learned to be careful with attention. She wrote, Why? He thought for a long moment, then wrote the only honest answer he had. Because you gave me bread when I had nothing, and you didn't ask for anything. She read it. Her fingers rested on the page longer than necessary. Then she closed the notebook and handed it back. She didn't write a response. But she pulled out a second loaf and placed it beside him. Warm, fresh, given freely. That was her answer. The notebook became their language. Every evening, Obiora came. He sat on the curb beside her oven. They wrote back and forth, short sentences, sometimes just single words. The conversations were simple at first. How long have you been baking? Since I was 12. My grandmother taught me. Is she still alive? No. Silence on paper felt different from silence in the air. Heavier, more intentional. Where do you live? Behind the market. I rent a space from Mama Titi. And your family? She paused before writing. I am my family. 4 words. He read them 3 times. Each time they cut deeper. On the 5th night it rained. Not gently. Lagos rain, violent, sudden, turning the alley into a river within minutes. Halima scrambled to cover her oven with a tarp. The dough she had prepared was getting wet. Her mat was soaking. Obiora was already beside her. He grabbed the tarp, pulled it tighter, held it against the wind while she rescued the bread from the oven. Rain hammered against his back, soaking through his shirt. He didn't move. When the worst passed, they stood under the small overhang, breathing hard. Water dripped from their clothes. The oven hissed as rain hit hot clay. Halima looked at him. His shirt was ruined. His shoes were covered in mud. His hair was plastered to his forehead. And he was smiling. Not a polished smile, not a calculated one, but a real one. The kind that came from doing something simple and good. She reached for the notebook, protected inside a plastic bag. She wrote with shaking, damp fingers. You didn't have to do that. He took the pen. I wanted to. You'll get sick. I'll survive. She studied his face, then wrote slowly. You're strange. He laughed. She couldn't hear it, but she saw it. The way his shoulders shook, the way his eyes crinkled, the way his whole body softened. And something in her chest responded. A warmth that had nothing to do with the oven. She wrote one more thing before they parted. Come back tomorrow. I'll make extra. It was the first time she had invited him. 3 weeks in, the world found him. A black SUV appeared at the end of the alley. Doors opened. 2 men in suits stepped out. One of them was his father's lawyer. Mr. Madhu, your family has been looking for you. Obiora stood slowly from the curb. Beside him, Halima stiffened. She couldn't hear the words, but she felt the shift. The weight of expensive shoes on wet concrete, the tension in Obiora's posture, the cold formality that had invaded their quiet space. Your father requests your return. Immediately. Obiora didn't move. His eyes flickered to Halima. She was watching the men with the focus of someone who understood threat without needing to hear it. Tell my father I'll return when I'm ready. The lawyer hesitated. Sir, the Abuja contract. I said I'll return when I'm ready. The men exchanged glances, then left. The SUV pulled away, leaving tire marks in the mud. Halima reached for the notebook. Who were they? Obiora took the pen. His hand trembled slightly. People from my old life. Old life? He exhaled slowly, then wrote the truth he had been avoiding. I'm not who you think I am, Halima. I'm not poor. I'm not homeless. I own a company, a large one. She read the words, then read them again. Her expression didn't change. Not anger, not excitement, not shock. Just stillness. The deep, practiced stillness of someone who had learned to process the world without reacting to it. She took the pen. Her handwriting was slower now. Careful. Then why are you here? Because my family wants me to marry a woman I don't love for a business deal. Pause. And because you gave me bread when I had nothing. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that. She stared at the page. A long, long time. The oven crackled beside them. The market noise hummed in the background. Noise she couldn't hear, but he could. And right now, he wished he couldn't. She wrote, I didn't give you bread because you were special. I gave it because you were hungry. I know. So don't make it into something it wasn't. The words stung, not because they were cruel, because they were protecting something fragile. He wrote, What if it became something more? She didn't answer. She closed the notebook, placed it beside the oven, and returned to her dough. Her hands moved faster now, pressing harder. The rhythm had changed. He understood. He stood, brushed the dust from his trousers, and walked away. His chest ached in a way no boardroom defeat ever had. That night, Halima sat alone behind her oven. The bread was done. The fire was dying. The alley was empty. She opened the notebook to his last words. What if it became something more? Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, not as sound, because she had never heard her grandmother's voice, but as sensation. The way her grandmother's hands had held hers while teaching her to knead dough. The way she had written on a small chalkboard every morning, Kindness is never wasted, Halima, even if the world never pays you back. She looked at the words again. Her fingers traced them lightly. Then she picked up the pen and wrote beneath them, though no one was there to read it. It already did. Obiora returned to his family. He sat through meetings. He reviewed contracts. He attended dinners. But he was not present. His hands signed papers while his mind shaped dough in a dark alley. 1 week passed. His mother noticed. You're distracted. I'm thinking. About what? Silence. About someone. His mother's eyes narrowed. The Chidinma arrangement is still... I'm not marrying Chidinma. His mother's composure cracked slightly. Obiora. I met someone. He looked at her directly. She's deaf. She's poor. She bakes bread in an alley behind Oshodi Market. And she gave me food when I had absolutely nothing to give her in return. Silence. The kind that could go either way. She taught me something, Mama, he continued, his voice softening. She taught me that the most honest conversation I've ever had was one where neither of us could hear a word. His mother studied him for a long time. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not approval, not yet, but recognition. The recognition of a mother seeing her son clearly for the first time. She said nothing. And sometimes, nothing was enough. The alley was quiet. Evening light had turned the concrete gold. The oven was cold, unusual for this hour. Halima sat on her mat, the notebook open on her lap, her eyes fixed on the entrance of the alley. She felt the vibration before she saw him. Footsteps. Familiar. The ones that always hesitated slightly 3 steps before reaching her. Obiora appeared. He carried nothing except the notebook's twin, a new one, leather-bound, expensive but understated. He sat down beside her, not too close. She didn't reach for the pen, neither did he. For a moment they simply sat together in the kind of silence that only they could share, one who chose not to speak and one who couldn't hear. Then he opened the new notebook. On the first page he had already written, "I came back." She took the pen. "I know. I felt your footsteps." "I'm sorry I left." "You had to." "I didn't want to." She paused, then wrote, "I didn't want you to either." Something broke open between them, not dramatically, gently, like bread tearing along the seam where it was always meant to split. He wrote, "No more hiding." She wrote, "No more pretending." He wrote, "I want to build something with you. Not for you, with you." She read it twice, then looked at him. Her eyes, dark, steady, full of a strength no sound had ever shaped, met his completely. She wrote one word, "Okay." Months later, the alley looked different. The clay oven was still there, Halima insisted, but beside it stood a proper bakery. Small, clean, warm. A wooden sign above the door read, "Halima's, bread made with silence and love." She trained 3 young deaf women from the neighborhood. They communicated in sign language, moving through the kitchen like dancers, synchronized, precise, beautiful. Obiora visited every evening, not as a billionaire, as the man who sat on the curb, who held tarps in the rain, who learned to speak with his hands because his voice was never enough. He had learned sign language. Not perfectly. His fingers were still clumsy, still hesitant. But he tried, every day. And Halima corrected him, every day. "Your sign for bread looks like shoe," she signed one afternoon, suppressing a smile. He tried again. "Better?" "Worse." She laughed, a sound she couldn't hear, but he could. Light, rare, precious. The wedding was held in the alley, the same alley where she had pulled bread from a clay oven and fed a stranger who had nothing. No ballroom, no chandelier, no imported wine. Just string lights hung between the buildings, the warm glow of the old oven, and the smell of fresh bread filling the evening air. Halima stood before a small mirror propped against the bakery wall. Her dress was white, simple, hand-stitched by a tailor she had known since childhood. Her headscarf was new, the first new thing she had bought for herself in years. She looked at her reflection. The girl who knelt alone beside a fire every night. The girl who spoke with her hands because the world never learned to listen. She was still that girl. But today, someone had learned to listen. Obiora waited at the end of the alley. His suit was simple. His hands were trembling. Not from nerves, from the overwhelming certainty that this was the most important moment of his life. She walked toward him. No music. She wouldn't have heard it anyway. Just the soft rhythm of her footsteps on the concrete, felt more than heard. She reached him. Their eyes met. He raised his hands and signed slowly, carefully. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." She signed back. "You are the first person who ever tried to hear me." The officiant read the vows aloud, while a sign language interpreter translated. The guests watched in silence, a silence they chose, not one that was forced upon them. When it was time, Obiora signed his vow. "You fed me when I was hungry. You taught me when I was lost. You loved me when I was no one." His hands trembled. "I will spend every day earning the bread you gave me for free." Halima's eyes glistened. She signed back, "I never heard your voice before I loved you. I never needed to." Her hands steadied. "Because love was never about sound. It was about showing up. And you showed up every night." He slid the ring onto her finger. She pressed her palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, the way she felt everything. Strong, steady, real. And in the end, the deaf girl who baked bread in a dark alley didn't just find love. She found the one person willing to learn her language, not because he had to, but because she was worth every word he would never be able to say. Not because of wealth, not because of hearing, but because when someone feeds you in the dark without asking your name, the only honest response is to come back. Every night. Forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.